My final guest tonight has mastered comedy, music, acting, podcasting and has now written her first novel. Isy Suttie is an award-winning comedian, writer, musician and actress. Bursting onto the scene in 2003, Isy soon became known for her portrayal of IT nerd Dobby in the cult sitcom Peep Show.
Eat my phone, baby! Eat it up!
Since then, she's been a regular on our screens, appearing in hit shows such as Damned and Man Down. And now, she brings us her debut novel, Jane is Trying. Please welcome the wonderful Isy Suttie! Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's so nice to be in front of people.
Is this kind of the first sort of performance you've done? Were you kind of performing during lockdown, or...?
I've done a few, but I still feel that buzz of, like, not being in front of a computer, just staring at my own face.
And you're here mainly to chat about the book. This is your first novel, isn't it?
Yeah, it's my first novel.
Jane is Trying.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. What's it about?
It's about a woman called Jane who is happily engaged, so she thinks, working in London in advertising, quite a high-powered job, really. And then they're trying for a baby. Then she finds out that her partner, who's a little bit pathetic but quite lovable, has been cheating on her. And she is whisked away back to the Midlands, and she moves back into her childhood home, and her parents sort of mean well, but they're quite mollycoddling.
Yeah.
And it's about, I suppose, a lot of stuff happens to her then, and it's about whether she thinks she can stand on her own 2 feet, I suppose.
Right, OK. And is it... I mean, it doesn't sound completely like your life. It feels like an imagining of your life if it went badly. Do you know what I mean?
It is a bit like that. Like, she's similar to me in some ways, and the mum in it is very similar to mine.
Right.
The mum in it is like, Jane! The mum's really anxious, and, like, whenever she sees Jane, she's like, oh, gosh, you've got a new mole on your shoulder, you might have cancer. Like, she's kind of really full on. And when I gave it to mum, I was like, I don't want you to think that you're like the mum in it, thinking you are totally like the mum in it. I said, look, Mum, when I do press for this, I'm going to say you're like the mum, but you're only a bit like the mum. And she went, oh, I think I'm totally like the mum. And I was like, great, it's come from your mouth. And then she was like, I almost feel like I wrote the book. And I was like, hang on, mate.
Yeah. And did it find you sort of revisiting old memories to kind of evoke Matlock, or, like, a version of that in your head?
Yeah, like, I've got a lot of love for Matlock, which is where I grew up. But then I did remember loads of things, because there's a lot of things set in the park in Jane is Trying.
Yeah.
And loads of things happened in the park.
Parks are amazing when you're a kid, eh?
Oh, my God, it's the whole universe, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's where you go to drink Diamond. Why? It's...
Bandstands as well.
Yeah. In fact, she rings him from the bandstand.
Oh, right, nice.
And I've done so many things in that bandstand.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean.
Weird. It's like your version of a nightclub, isn't it?
No, it is, but yeah.
You can't actually go into one.
I wonder if kids are like that anymore, but is that sort of like... It's like when you go past a graveyard, you're, like, been wanked off in that?
Yeah, so I actually went back to Matlock when I was writing this book to kind of, like, go with my old best mates round all our local haunts. And I remembered when we got to this bridge that I'd jumped off it for a £1 bet to try and get out of my maths exam.
And what happened?
Well, so the water was a lot shallower than it looked because it was raining. It looked really deep, and I was like, I'll just swim to the side. I've got my bronze swimming certificate. I landed, the water was actually really shallow. I landed with my left foot at right angles to my ankle, and it was a clean break. Yeah. In fact, it made that noise.
Yeah.
And I had bright red hair then, because I used to dye it with henna. And I put my head up, and my hair was all in my eyes because it was wet. And I was like, I've gone blind! My eyes are bleeding! And then I was like, oh, no, it's just my hair. But then I was like, I can't walk. I actually can't fucking walk.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Did you do the maths exam? You didn't do it. There you go. So technically,
actually,
quid up.
A quid up.
Cool broken ankle.
So I was going out with a skateboarder. It's very useful to be going out with a skateboarder if you're going to jump off a bridge and break your ankle. He wheeled me home on the skateboard.
Didn't think to call somebody, just wheel you home like that. Amazing.
Yeah.
And also, when you were a kid, you ran a love agency, is that right?
Yeah, I ran this dating agency when I was like 12. And
what would you do?
so my mates would commission me to write love songs about boys they fancied.
Commission. Great word. Just 12-year-olds. So I'm commissioning you for the... So what, they'd say, like, I fancy Dave.
Yeah, so I fancied him. Sometimes it was boys from another school, so I'd be like, what does he look like? Tell me 3 facts about him. And then I'd write this song from, like, her point of view. And then the idea was, on a cassette tape, I'd teach her the song, I'd play guitar, she'd sing this love song to him, and then he'd fall in love with her. And we always used to follow it with a B-side of Everything I Do It For You by Bryan Adams. And then we'd just, like, put the cassette tape into the boys' bag.
Do you ever sort of remember those songs?
For sure. Like, so there were 2 boys called Sam and Jack who were best mates, who me and my best mate Joe fancied, because it's really important, isn't it, when you're 12 or 13 to fancy 2 best mates if you've got a best mate, 'cause it's just easier. And we sort of swapped between us as to who fancied who, but I remember this...
Very modern, yeah.
Yeah. I remember the song that I wrote about Jack, because this was the least successful song, actually, of all of them that I wrote.
OK.
Yeah. So imagine that you're called Jack March. Everyone, imagine your name is Jack March. What would you have done if you'd opened your school bag and found the tape containing this song? Jack, 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 Jack March. Just so he was sure it was for him. Jack March! Jack, I really love your blonde hair. It's enough to make people stare. Jack, I really hate it when you give me a glare. Why can't we be a pair? Jack, 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 Jack March. Jack March! Jack, I really love your lovely mouth. I wonder, is it facing north or south? It would be sweet if it was facing south. Even better if it was facing my mouth. That's it.
That's the end. Wow. And have you, like, with your partner, Ellis, who, in case anyone doesn't know, is the fantastic Ellis James, who does a radio show with John Robbins. He's a fantastic stand-up. But so, are there any sort of stories with you and Ellis that are like you going, we can't fucking tell anyone that?
Oh, there is.
Do you know what I mean? Or
yeah.
Does he have those moments where you do something romantic and you're like, that's between us?
Well, I don't know if this counts as romantic, but... OK, so with asparagus and wee... so, apparently... So does your wee smell when you have asparagus?
Yeah, so asparagus and sugar puffs, weirdly.
They actually smell quite similar, asparagus and sugar puffs.
Yeah,
like
but they, like, genuinely, they're very strange bedfellows from a sort of a urine point of view.
Wow.
But go on, so...
So with asparagus, so you've got the superpower then, so have I.
I don't know if that'd get me in the X-Men, but... What do you mean the superpower? Isn't that...
So, everyone's wee smells when they have asparagus.
Yes.
But only people with the superpower can smell the asparagus.
Right.
Whereas I thought that only certain people's wee smelt from asparagus. So we both weed into receptacles, Chinese takeaway cartons.
Was this... Hang on, was this during lockdown?
Yeah.
Fuck it. Excellent.
And then the idea was we'd see if we could smell the asparagus.
Yeah.
So I smelt both specimens and could smell asparagus in both of them.
Yeah.
And he smelt both of them and he couldn't.
Wow. What time during the day did you do this?
It was about midnight.
Yeah. And
it would be so weird to do it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's what I mean, but it's... This is clearly a strange thing to be talking about. But I can sense that everyone here is thinking, I'm going to try that. Ladies and gentlemen, please give up the fantastic Isy Suttie!